Hi students, Mr. Bockold here. Spoiler alert, my health sucks. So I was trying to convince myself I need to go into work tomorrow, and then Mrs. Bockold was like, dude, you look like crap. You're gonna crash again tomorrow, and then you're gonna put admin out, and they're gonna have to scramble for subs. Let's just call it now and get a sub. So you've got a video instead of me. Alright, first thing, we're not going to do grammar today. I was going to teach you how to write a compound sentence with a semicolon, conjunctive, adverb, comma sentence structure, which happens to be my favorite sentence structure ever, but we're not going to get that today. Maybe Friday, maybe Monday. We'll see. You are, however, going to do ACT prep. So, best 8 minutes and 45 seconds of your day. Take that back. We're not going to time it. You're just going to do it. Take the first 15 minutes in class and get the ACT prep done. Once you're done with ACT prep, you can move on to March Book 2. First period, if you haven't already, go over some one person in each row right now, literally right now, one person in each row. Go get a copy of March Book 2, hand it out to everybody in your row. And while one person is doing that, everyone else go ahead and open up the ACT prep. I want to show you a few things. All right, so the reading section, you're going to get 4 passages. So in this online practice test, they have a 5th one because a few years ago, ACT brought in a new type of passage. It's super easy. You just need a strategy for it. You don't know if it's going to be the first, second, third, or fourth passage, but one of those is going to be a twofer, meaning you get passage A and passage B both on one topic, and you're going to read them independently and then compare and contrast. So when we look at this, both of these passages are going to be about the moon landing. Passage A, in orbit, it's a piece of literature, it's a literary narrative. So it's a short story or an excerpt from a short story about the moon landing. And then passage B, same topic, but I believe it is passage B, July 20th, 1969. I think it was more of a news report. I can't remember. It's been a year since I've looked at both of these. So you need a strategy for those. Here's the recommended strategy that I've pulled out of multiple ACT tests. Well, let's look at the questions first. Questions 1 through 3, only about passage A. Questions 4 through 6, only about passage B. And then the last questions are compare and contrast between the two sections. So here's my recommendation. Read all of passage A, then answer these questions. Then read all of passage 2 or passage B, and then answer these questions. And once you've answered each set of questions, it's going to be very simple at that point to do the compare and contrast ones that ask you about both passages. Now I have the data up from last year and the year before, and I'm going to tell you the most frequently missed questions. Let me get it pulled up. I wrote those down on my phone. Number 2. So I want you to see number 2. Number 2 is going to ask you, the narrator's description suggests the narrator sees Armstrong as ultimately self-confident, triumphant, isolated and alone, awe-inspiring and heroic, stiff and ceremonial. So for this one, even if you don't know all of the words, that's fine. You can use the process of elimination. Remember, if any part of it is wrong, the entire option is wrong. So self-confident, if you find that one of those is incorrect, self-confident or triumphant, the entire thing is wrong. So if you can mark off just one of these in each of them, check off the entire thing. All right, the next one is number 6. Number 6 is going to be about passage B. The information about Luna City and Mars provided in lines 80 through 84 is most likely meant to represent the, okay, It's been a year since I've looked at this passage. I remember students get hung up on this one. Go back and reread it. If you reread it carefully, you'll be like, oh, I get it. It's a little bit tricky on there, but if you go back, you should be able to see it. And then finally, number 9, it can reasonably be inferred. When they're talking about inferring, there is no direct answer in the text. You're going to have to jump to some logical conclusions. So it can reasonably be inferred that after seeing the first man walk on the moon, compared to the narrator of passage B, the narrator of passage A felt. So we've got two different people narrating what they saw about the moon landing. All right, so take 15 minutes to do that. So everyone needs to be done with ACT prep by no later than 30 minutes after class starts. By then, everybody should be reading March Book 2. At this point, everybody should have a copy of March Book 2 on their desk. Okay, March Book 2. Let's go ahead and look into your assignment for that. You're going to finish up the book today. You're going to get The Empire Strikes Back. And while there's so much progress that our activists make in 1963, there is a heart-wrenching ending at this. Make a copy of the double entry journal. I have one right here. Okay, so you need 5 entries in this. You guys know the deal. You need to read all of the pages and 5 annotations. It's not one or the other, it's both. Okay, so I'm going to quickly review. Whoops, wrong slide. Let me get it pulled up here. All right. We talked about this a lot recently, so I'm going to go over this quickly. Birmingham demonstrations were pivotal. We've got the letter from the Birmingham jail. We've got the Children's Crusade. We're going to watch a documentary on that on Monday and Tuesday of next week. So that'll be funsies. We saw Governor Bull Connor make some stupid mistakes, including arresting 1,000 children, using fire hoses on demonstrators, and violently having the dogs attack the demonstrators. This makes national news. Martin Luther King called this a crisis packed tension, which forces a community that has previously ignored negotiations confront those difficult issues. This gets the President of the United States. Here we have President Kennedy on page 140. The fires of frustration and discord are burning in every city, north and south. We face, therefore, a moral crisis as a country and as a people. It cannot be met by repressive police action. It cannot be left to the increased demonstrations to the seats. It cannot be quieted by token moves or talks. So at this point, President Kennedy says, all right, Congress, clear the docket. We are going to fix this right now through legislation. And he forces Congress to start coming up with the Civil Rights Act. And the lawmakers start debating and negotiation on what should go into the Civil Rights Act of 1963. All right, so the very last parts of last time, John Lewis is appointed chairman of SNCC, which is the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. This is the committee that he joined very early on in his back in Tennessee when he first got involved in the sit-ins. He was just a participant. Now he is the chairman. He's got quite the resume. So he's the chair of this. And as the chair, the moment he's elected, he wasn't in there a week, that he was barely there a week when the representative SNCC was invited to the White House to join other leaders discussing President Kennedy's proposed civil rights bills. So now John Lewis, newly appointed chair of SNCC, gets invited to the White House to meet with President Kennedy to discuss the civil rights bill. So as he goes, the civil rights bill, they couldn't support all of it. They were like, okay, this is great. This is great. We love this. We love this. We love this. But nowhere in the civil rights bill are you guaranteeing our access to the polls. So they had to make a few concessions on that. So even though the Civil Rights Bill of 1964 was a huge win for civil rights leaders, they still needed the Civil Rights Act of 1965, which is Book 3 in Selma. So John Lewis is going to Washington. He's a part of these conversations. And the other thing that's going to happen is activists are going to get ready and plan for the March on Washington for Freedom and Jobs, which is no small feat. Here's John Lewis right here, sitting across the table from the President of the United States. Okay, the March on Washington was 20 years in the making. The idea was actually came from A. Philip Randolph, who had been wanting to do something like this for over 2 decades. This guy is a hero. We don't always see him or know about him. Martin Luther King takes a lot of the credit historically, or it at least given to him because of his speech. But this guy was a master planner. He'd been working on this and wanting to do this for a long time. The other guy, I love this guy, Baynard Rustin. This guy was in charge of the logistics of the March on Washington. This is 1963. This is pre social media. He invites over 250,000 activists from across the United States to come to Washington, D.C. And he wanted to make sure that this was a model demonstration, that it was peaceful, and that there was not one piece of litter left in DC because of this. Baynard Rustin was a logistical master. I don't know if you've ever planned a party before, but I've like been tasked with planning just like a few meetings for clubs after school. That stresses me out, and there's only like 15 participants. 250,000 people. Baynard Rustin did this wonderfully. So this is John Lewis. He gets up there. Now his speech was a little fiery. He got into a little trouble. He had to censor it or edit it a little bit. Here are actual footage of there. So here is your assignment today. 5 annotations, pages 146 all the way through the end. Well, we're not going to keep our comic books open. When you're done, you can go ahead and close it. Now, at the end of the period, I'm going to have the sub share a video about the 16th Street church bombing, and you're going to watch that. It's pretty heavy. That's how our book is going to end, folks. I really wish I could be there with you today. I can't. You're wonderful. Keep being great students, and I'll see you Friday, I hope. So take care, folks. Have a great Wednesday.